Welcome back to the Deep Dig, a sports pod. I'm your host, D, and today we are going to dig into some of the Friday night games that happened in college football. But before we do that, be sure to hit that like button, be sure to subscribe, drop some comments below, let me know your thoughts as we're going to continue to do this throughout the rest of the season. And we had a couple of games that on paper were going to be like really fun. Personally, I love the Big 12 football. I think that it's an interesting style of football that we see. And so UNLV from the Mountain West took on Kansas, and a battle of loser leaves the rankings in Arizona taking on Kansas State happened. Let's start on the more competitive matchup. UNLV and the go-go offense were on display against this Kansas team that has a very dynamic quarterback in Jalon Daniels, and they started off the gates hot. You could see like this is the epitome of like Big 12 football, a very athletic quarterback that can really get after it, can show flashes of arm talent, but ultimately it's about speed. And Jalon Daniels put that on display throughout that first half, having two really good runs for touchdowns. But UNLV sticks into it. I know they had a little bit of a hiccup in that first half, mismanaging the clock, but ultimately it doesn't matter as the second quarter comes to an end. Blown coverage by Kansas on a wheel route, and they end up getting a touchdown the last play of that half. That really keeps them in the game throughout the rest. UNLV just kind of stuck around. I know that people were talking about this dynamic go-go offense. We started to see flashes of that throughout the second half, and it was something that ultimately, realistically, it just came down to Kansas and Jalon Daniels continuing to get that turnover bug, continuing to play sloppy, and just this Kansas team just doesn't look as well coached as they should be. And it just came back to bite them. They end up losing at the end to UNLV. UNLV came back, and I believe with like a little bit less than 2 minutes left, scored on a 4th and goal play, a run. And it was one of those things where it was a read option. So how they do it at UNLV, they have the quarterback and then they have two running backs set close to him. And with that, you can either do the option or you can roll out and do the pitch option that way. He decided to give, and they ended up making it. So it is what it is. If you're Kansas, you do not feel good about this because you've been bit by the turnover bug. I don't know what you need to do if you're Jalon Daniels moving forward, but you've got to get it fixed. And it's easy reads that he's missing on. It's just ones that he threw it late on the first one. It was maybe like 1 or 2 seconds late before when the receiver got to the safety position, and he just didn't see him there. Or I don't know what the read was on that, but he was just late. And the second one, he held on the ball again way too long, threw a lollipop over the middle, and the middle linebacker picked it off. And so I know this last game he had some picks. This game he had some picks. You got to get it fixed if you're Kansas. There's no way you're going to win because this defense is bleeding, and you can't. If you can't stop anybody, you cannot just give the ball back. If you're UNLV, you feel pretty good. You've beat two Big 12 teams. You still have yet to get into your conference. You're in the Mountain West. Now you start to think of like, okay, can we be that group of 5 school that makes it into this playoff? Who knows? You never know. You could end up squeaking by and getting it. So if you're UNLV, you feel really good moving forward. Sluka looked good. You got to see some of his arm talent, some of his dynamic ability. He had one really long run that went. I was a little bit surprised by his athleticism, seeing him really play for the in depth for the first time this year. It was sneaky good. I really liked it. And so I'm really excited to see what this UNLV team can do moving forward. Let's move on to the next game. This was the number 20 Arizona going to number 14 Kansas State. And this was a matchup that I was like just kind of chomping at the bit for. I was thinking, okay, of this slate of games in this week 3, this might be the best one because we're seeing two teams that really haven't put it on paper. They're good, but they've struggled in a couple of these games And so who is actually going to be for real? And as I said in the beginning, this was a loser leaves rankings matchup. I think no matter what, someone was going to end up looking bad. Someone was going to end up looking great, and you feel really good about your ranking spot. Kansas State just put it on them. I don't know what happened with Noah Fafita, but he just locked in on McMillan at the beginning, and they were able, McMillan was able to get his catches at one point. It was a pretty ridiculous stat line. I think he had 9 completions, and 8 of those had went to McMillan. It was crazy at first, and he just wasn't seeing anybody else on the field. He was only locked on McMillan, and McMillan is a number 1 wide receiver in like 99% of programs right now. He is a true NFL guy. But if you're Noah Fafita, you've got to move around. You've got to look at other people because they were locked in on what you were doing. They were like, okay, you could have that. We're going to play McMillan safe. We're not going to let him beat us deep. And even then, he had a couple of balls where it's like, oh, that's a good throw. I feel pretty good about that. You live to fight another day. But if you're Noah Fafita, you've got to be better. You've got to spread the ball out a little bit more. If you're on the other side, Kansas State, they just played a really good game. Avery Johnson has started off this season a little bit slower than I think people expected, but he showed off his athleticism in the second half, running all over the place. I believe he ran for over 110 yards. So if you're K-State, you're like, okay, well, we locked down on defense. We made Noah Fafita look bad. This is a Arizona team that was high flying in week 1. We've kind of clipped their wings, and we feel really good heading into the rest of this Big 12 schedule. Can we make a run and make it? Because to me, there's 2 teams. There's 3 teams in the Big 12 that I feel like have a legitimate stake at getting this conference championship. It's K-State, it's Oklahoma State, and out of nowhere for me, it's Iowa State. I feel like those 3 have solidified themselves as the cream of the crop in this Big 12 conference. And I don't know who comes out on top, but if you're K-State, you've got to be like, okay, this was the game where we could turn around our season, like solidify that this is going to be a very special season. Avery Johnson comes out at the beginning of this game. I felt like he was a little bit lackluster. This was today was a true, this is what Big 12 football is, or the quarterback play is very up and very down. The defense is fast, but you can beat them up a little bit in the run game. And that's just kind of what it was. It was big. This is Big 12 football, baby. And so walking away from it, you feel good if you're K-State, obviously, because you put down another feather into your cap. You keep moving forward. This is something that Avery Johnson can really build upon. And I think that this K-State team, they have some dynamic players. Edwards, who was a transfer out of Colorado, had, I believe, a rushing touchdown and a punt return touchdown. You've got to incorporate this guy a little bit more. And I know that on the broadcast, they had said that was the goal this week was, hey, we're going to kind of figure out any way that we can to get this guy incorporated. And one big thing was that they were going to put him back there to return punts, and it paid off tremendously. He just looked on a whole different level of speed than everybody on that little pooch kick. And I know for Arizona, it does kind of suck because their punter got hurt. They had the place kicker kicking that punt, and it just wasn't a great one. And K-State take advantage of it. And so they dog walked them. I don't know what else to say about it. You feel really good. I feel like now K-State is going to move up the rankings with this win. This is another feather in their cap. Arizona probably falls out of the top 25. And again, you've got to feel good at kind of keeping your eye on the cream of the crop of this Big 12. If you are K-State, you're a force to be reckoned with. Arizona, you go back to the drawing board. You figure out how can we really make this work. If we're going to play this, if we want to play this style of offense, we've got to make better decisions. We've got to kind of not just hone in on McMillan. We've got to take the rest of the field. But we know that we do have a guy in our pocket that is a true number 1 wide receiver. So take advantage of it, but don't make that the the sole offense, because you have to switch it up. You have to run the ball effectively. You've got to get it to other people and then take advantage of McMillan. So overall, it was a fun night. I'm very much looking forward to the Saturday slate. But be sure to hit that like button. Be sure to subscribe. Drop some comments. Just let me know your thoughts. Later.